Imagine this. You're in a meeting, people are talking, and your brain just won't keep up. Not because you don't care, but because depression doesn't just steal your mood, it hijacks your ability to think straight. And here's the kicker. Most antidepressants, they lift your sadness, sure, but they often leave you stuck in the fog. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. The FDA actually approved an antidepressant for improving processing speed, not just mood, not just feeling a little lighter. We're talking measurable stuff like sharper focus, quicker thinking, clearer memory. It's called Trintellix, generic name of vortioxetine. And today we're going to walk through the science, what it actually feels like to take it, who might actually benefit, and the trade-offs you really need to know about. And who am I to clear the fog on depression's forgotten symptoms? My name is Dr. Sulman Aziz Mirza, triple board certified in adult psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry, and addiction medicine. And as someone who deals with brain fog myself, mostly because I don't follow my own advice and never get enough sleep, I know how much it can mess with your life. When most people think about depression, they picture sadness, tears, feeling hopeless. But here's what doesn't get talked about enough. Depression can mess with how your brain works. People don't just say, I'm sad. They say, I can't focus, my memory's shot, my brain feels foggy. If that's not just them exaggerating, studies show that the vast majority of people, we're talking up to 90%, deal with cognitive problems during depressive episodes. And here's the part that really stings. Even when your mood improves, that fog, it can hang around. Picture this. You're at work, sitting in a meeting, and everyone's talking, but it's like your brain's on dial-up internet. Oh geez, having flashbacks of all those AOL free trial CDs in the mail. Or you're watching Netflix. 20 minutes go by and you suddenly realize you have no idea what just happened in the show. That's why this matters. Your boss doesn't care that you're not crying anymore if you still can't get projects done. Depression attacks your attention, your memory, your decision-making, the exact tools you need to function. And here's the problem. Standard antidepressants like Zoloft or Lexapro, they'll help with mood or anxiety, but those cognitive symptoms, often untouched. I hear it all the time. I'm not as sad, but I still can't think straight. So here's something practical you can do today. Pay attention to your fog. Write down 1 or 2 moments in the next 24 hours where you couldn't focus, couldn't remember, couldn't keep up. It sounds simple, but it gives you clarity, and it's something you can actually bring to your doctor. And this is exactly why Trintellix got so much attention, because if we can treat both mood and cognition, well, that's a game changer. All right, let's get into the science without drowning in the jargon. Most antidepressants do one trick. They stop serotonin from being reabsorbed. More serotonin floating around, which is supposed to lead to a mood boost. But Trintellix, it's multitasking. Not only does it block reuptake, it also modulates different serotonin receptors in different ways. That's what researchers think might explain the cognitive benefits. Now, I know, every drug company swears that their pill is special. But here's what makes this one stand out. In 2018, the FDA actually updated the label to include the data on cognitive improvements. And the FDA doesn't just hand those out like candy. They based that decision on studies using something called the Digit Symbol Substitution Test, or DSST. Basically, you're matching numbers as symbols as fast as you can while the clock runs. It looks like a kid's puzzle, but it's actually measuring processing speed, attention, mental sharpness, the exact thing that depression can wreck. And the results? Some trials showed moderate to big improvements. Meta-analyses found the benefits were statistically significant. The most striking thing? When researchers dug deeper, most of the gains couldn't just be explained by, people feel less sad. In one study, nearly 3/4 of the cognitive benefit was independent of mood improvement. So let that sink in. People weren't just happier, they were sharper, even if their mood wasn't fully fixed. And when Trintellix went head-to-head against Cymbalta, both helped mood, but only Trintellix moved the needle on cognitive scores. That made history. It was the first antidepressant where the FDA officially said, this one helps with cognition too. Not just as a side perk, but as part of its identity. But that's the science. What's it actually like to take this medication? Here's the reality. Trintellix is like that friend people either adore or can't stand. There's not much middle ground. For some, it's life-changing. For others, they bail within a week. The main culprit? Nausea. And not the mild, queasy kind. We're talking the kind that makes you stare at the pill in your hand and think, do I really want to do this again? In studies, about 20 to 30% of patients got hit with it, usually in the first week. Sometimes it passes if you take it with food or start low and go slow, but for some people it's just too much. If you can muscle through those early days though, the payoff can be huge. Patients describe it like the lights turning back on in their brain. More focus, sharper memory, fog lifting. That's not a small deal when you've been stumbling through life with your brain in the dark. Now, trade-offs. Like antidepressants, it can still cause sexual side effects, though some studies suggest maybe a little less than the classic SSRIs. Still, it's not risk-free. And most importantly for the majority of people, the cost, well, brutal. Around $480 to $500 a month retail. Sure, there are saving programs, but insurance companies love to fight on this one. Add in the fact that it can take 4 to 6 weeks before you know if it's really working, and you see why a lot of people don't stick with it. Oh, and if you ever stop, like all antidepressants, don't just quit cold turkey. Tapering is safer. So yeah, Trintellix can be rough in the beginning, but for the right person, the benefits can be worth every bit of nausea and every insurance phone call. Which brings us to the question, who exactly is that right person? So, who's the sweet spot for this medication? Usually not someone brand new to antidepressants. Think of it more like this. Adults with major depression, where the cognitive symptoms, the fog, the memory slips, the constant I can't keep up, are wrecking daily life. Work, school, relationships. Doctors often reach for Trintellix after 1 or 2 standard SSRIs haven't done the trick. And honestly, insurance coverage usually pushes it into the second line territory anyways. Yes, insurance companies, I still hate you. But here's where it shines. The people who feel less sad but still say, I can't think straight. That's the gap it sometimes fills. And then there's the ADHD-like overlap. Folks with depression who struggle with focus and organization but can't, or don't want to, take stimulants. For them, Trintellix can sometimes pull double duty, mood and attention, without layering on another med. Dosing-wise, it's pretty straightforward. Adults usually start at 10 milligrams daily, range of 5 to 20. Older adults often begin at 5. If you're on meds like bupropion or fluoxetine, the dose usually gets cut in half. And drugs like rifampin can lower levels, which sometimes means adjustments the other way. Now let's be real, this isn't a miracle pill. For some people, the mood lift feels just like any other antidepressant. But for others, especially professionals whose careers are crumbling because of brain fog, the change is dramatic. So here's your simple 24-hour step. Ask yourself, are my biggest struggles mood or cognition? If you're less sad but still can't think, that's worth bringing up with your doctor. Sometimes naming the problem is the thing that unlocks a whole new approach. That's why the best candidates aren't just a little sad. They're lawyers who can't track cases, teachers forgetting lesson plans, people losing ground because their brain just won't cooperate. For them, Trintellix isn't about smiling more. It's about getting their life back. So here's the bottom line. Trintellix is unique. It's the first antidepressant with FDA-recognized cognitive benefits. And its multimodal mechanism means it doesn't just lift mood, it sharpens thinking too. But the trade-offs are real. Nausea in the first week, a steep price tag, and it's not a magic bullet. If brain fog is wrecking your work, school, or just daily functioning, and the meds you've tried haven't touched that piece, it might be worth asking your doctor about. Just remember, it's prescription only, not for everyone, and like all antidepressants, it carries the FDA warning about suicidal thoughts in young people. And here's the question I know you're asking. With all those pros and cons, does Trintellix make my list of the top 5 antidepressants? You can find out by clicking on the video below. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment about your own experiences with brain fog or antidepressants. I read them and they shape what I cover next. Until next time, be safe and be well.